Okay, here we go. The Mets are very frustrated with the Carlos Correa talks and are now considering walking away. What a huge mess this whole thing has been for Carlos Correa. According to Andy Martino of SNY, over the past few days, the Mets have grown very frustrated with the Carlos Correa negotiations, in the words of one source with direct knowledge of the team's thinking, and are now considering walking away altogether. Correa to the Mets is not dead, he says. In fact, the source said that in the end, they still believe the side stood a strong chance of reaching an agreement, but the deal is clearly at an inflection point, and for the first time, the team is seriously questioning whether it wants to proceed. Correa's agent, Scott Boras, could not be reached for comment. Well, that's the last thing he wants to do, is make any kind of comment about this. But let's go back in time. If you remember, Carlos Correa was once a San Francisco Giant. They landed Arsene Judge, and then they landed Carlos Correa on a 13-year, $350 million contract. Everything was looking great. The roses were ready for the press conference. The cake was ready. Everything was ready. But then the darn physical came up and something popped up. A lot of people were thinking, could it be something with the back? Could it be something with his shoulder? It actually was something with his ankle. While Correa missed time early in his MLB career with a back injury, multiple league sources said the Giants had concerns about an ankle injury he suffered while in the minor leagues. In 2014, when he was a 19-year-old prospect with the Houston Astros, Correa injured his leg on a slide into third base in a high A game. The Astros later announced that he underwent surgery on a fractured right fibula and a ligament. So, basically, talks with the Giants just completely died, and then they turned their attention to the New York Mets, who did get in on the Correa action late. It was, at that point, a little too late, and they had the deal with the San Francisco Giants. But Scott Boras, the dealing man that he is, turned to the New York Mets, said, "Hey, Scott, hey, man, we might have something for you." They came to terms on a deal, but then they took a physical as well. Same thing popped up. But John Heyman reported just yesterday that the Mets were gaining momentum towards a Carlos Correa deal, but now, obviously, there were the concerns over the physical a while back, but gaining momentum, looking like they were getting closer to a deal. It was looking like Carlos Correa was going to be a New York Met. But as of yesterday, it was looking like maybe there wasn't as much momentum as maybe there was that was being speculated. Carlos Correa's camp in discussions with at least one team other than the Mets. So I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, man, what team could this be? Could it be my Red Sox maybe? Maybe they could land Correa on like some kind of a short-term deal. I don't know, though. I think he wants something long-term. So in my head, probably not the Red Sox. Could the Yankees? I don't know, probably not. I think they're pretty set with Anthony Volpe as well as Peraza up the middle for the long term. Could the Giants maybe get back in on it? I don't know about that. Could the Angels think maybe they want to make some kind of a splash? They could use a shortstop. So I'm thinking here, maybe, the Cubs don't need a shortstop anymore. Who could use Carlos Correa? The Minnesota Twins. They have been wanting Carlos Correa from the start. They made an offer to Carlos Correa, a 10-year, $285 million deal, but the San Francisco Giants ended up offering just the bigger long-term deal, more money overall. So the Twins, they fell out of the running. But if we go take a look here at an update from Jim Bowden, he says here, well, this is just one quote. You can go listen to this on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM Radio. There is a possibility the Minnesota Twins come in and pick Correa out from under the New York Mets' noses. That is just absolutely just insane. Just this whole process for Correa, was a San Francisco Giant, and then the physical. Then it was looking like, all right, cool, New York Mets. This is a great fit. He's perfect for that city. All of the media attention, the sponsors that he would get. Just the fanfare for Carlos Correa. That would be huge. Him and Lindor on the left side of the infield. How fantastic would that be? So to me, it was like a match made in heaven for him to be on the New York Mets. Fangraphs actually still has Correa here as the third baseman. That was another thing too. He was going to be playing third base for the New York Mets. So, but it looks like, at the end of the day, this is definitely, the Mets are a little scared off with the ankle thing, but they probably want to have some kind of a deal where, there's going to be incentives put in place. There's going to be stipulations put in place. If he has something happen with that ankle injury, there's going to be some kind of insurance or something, or maybe they could, exercise a team option, put a team option in there somewhere. But that's when it gets really finicky with all these little details in the contract. So I could see where that could be hard to come to an agreement on, just a very detailed contract like that, especially when it comes to injuries. But to me, when you look at all the teams out there that really could use Carlos Correa, the Minnesota Twins just seem to make the most sense. He enjoyed his time last year with the Minnesota Twins. The Twins enjoyed having him with them. He was good for the younger players. He was a positive person within the organization last year. Both sides had nothing but good things to say about each other. And the Twins, hey, they had this guy for a whole year. So obviously they didn't seem to really care all that much about, an ankle injury. Yeah, there was no word about an ankle injury and the Twins being concerned. They offered him the deal. I wonder here if the Minnesota Twins, they come in, they can offer something close to what the Mets offered. I definitely think that's very possible. I think it is very realistic now that he could end up just going back to the Minnesota Twins. And when you're looking at the Twins, they've made a couple of moves, bringing in Joey Gallo, bringing in Christian Vasquez. You also brought in Kyle Farmer, so I guess you could have him as more of a, backup infielder. You can move around a little bit, play some other positions. But Carlos Correa, man, if you got this guy in this lineup, this lineup now would look extremely good. This Twins team, I think it makes a lot of sense. If you cannot come to an agreement with the New York Mets, I think this would be huge if he ended up going here. My goodness, this lineup would be absolutely insane. I feel like the Mets do need another bat in this lineup. I thought it was just a perfect fit overall. But to me, when you're just looking, at a team that really needs him the most, it's the Minnesota Twins. If you're, being realistic here, the Twins, I think, need him more than the New York Mets do. I could definitely see if the Twins, if they come at him with an offer, hey, 10, 11 years, 300, 305, 310, somewhere around there. There's no kind of any sort of incentives or stipulations about the injury long term. I could see him just being like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to Minnesota for the rest of my career. I had a good time there last year. They're not being, they're not throwing in any of these, weird stipulations in my contract. I can just go to Minnesota. I can just enjoy my time there, and I don't have to worry about anything happening, with my ankle down the road. To me, I would think if Minnesota offers a contract like that, I could definitely see him going back there. But this is definitely very interesting now that, we were seeing this report, how another team was jumping in, and then Jim Bowden saying here today that the Twins could come in and just swoop them right under the Mets' noses. Let me know everything you think about this down below in the comments. Where do you think he's going to end up? Do you think he ends up going to the Mets? Do you think he ends up going back to the Twins? Do you think maybe this other team that was being mentioned yesterday could be just a mystery team out there? Let me know everything you think. This is definitely a very wackadoodle situation with Carlos Correa, but I want to know all your thoughts down below. Everyone, that's all I got for right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.